So, you want to learn copywriting. You probably heard that you can make $10,000 a month or 2 to 3x the size of your business just by choosing the right words. And here's the truth, you can. But here's the hard truth, you probably won't, because 90% of copywriters will fail. Why? Because this isn't a learn it in 2 hours sort of thing. If it were, it wouldn't pay as well as it does. The top marketers spend their entire careers trying to master this, yet most free YouTube courses try to teach it in 2 hours, then offer their $1,000 program on the other side that teaches the real stuff that really doesn't offer much real value. But if you want to reach $10,000 as a freelancer or 2 to 3x the size of your business, you're going to need 3 things. 1, you're going to need to read a lot of really good copy. 2, you're going to need to write a lot of really good copy. And 3, you're going to need a lot of real world experience, which means trying, failing, and trying again. But there is a shortcut. You don't just have to learn from your own mistakes, you can learn from the mistakes and experiences of others, which is exactly what I've been doing for over a decade. I've worked with some of the world's top copywriters, I've driven over $30 million in revenue for small and medium-sized businesses, and I've even produced ads and webinars for some of the top brands in the world. And that's why in this series, I'm going to be showing you the fastest, most direct path to making $10,000 a month as a copywriter in just 21 days. No fluff, no detours, just a clear step-by-step process that works, even if you don't know what copywriting really is heading into this video. So at this point, you're probably wondering, why isn't this guy charging $1,000 plus for this program like most copywriting gurus? And the truth is that I didn't make this video to start a copywriting school. I started this because a couple years ago, I was super disillusioned with the whole college system. It's way too expensive, it's way too ideological, and it doesn't even give you real results at the end of it. And I've gathered free content from top universities, top experts in their field, all with the goal of helping you actually learn and become a better citizen. And the goal is to learn from the greats, practice a lot, and get real world experience, all things that we're going to be doing in this course. But this copywriting course was born out of frustration. I was able to find great content for design, video, entrepreneurship, coding, but really not that much great content for copywriting. And I knew I needed something better for FU College, so I made something better. So over the next 21 lessons, I'm going to give you everything you need to become a power player in the copywriting game. But at the end of the day, I am a marketer and I have to feed my family. So if you want to support this course, what I'm doing here, or what I'm doing over at FU College, here's how you can support. First off, you can share this video, you can spread it around and help get more people on board. Secondly, you can download all of the free resources from this course. And I thought it was important to mention that I created this course specifically for consultants who are trying to land gigs with business owners. But if you're a business owner yourself, don't worry, because these are universal copywriting tips that will work for anyone. But keep an eye out, because I am going to be dropping a course that is specifically for business owners. And if at any point you're watching me throughout this course or that course and saying to yourself, man, I really like this guy, I like his style, I kind of wish I could just get him to do everything for me. If that's the case, hit me up on Instagram or in the comment section below and we'll talk business. And I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy. Look to your left, look to your right. 2 of the 3 of you aren't going to be here by the end of this course. And I know that's true because I was compiling courses for MIT, Yale, Cal Arts, and you see courses that start with millions of people and they end with 14,000 people watching 21 days later. So against my better judgment, I'm going to be pulling my top 10 favorite tips from the rest of the course and putting them into this first episode. Why? Because 80% of you aren't going to watch the other ones, and I want you to walk away with something. But forewarning, if you want to make $10,000 as a copywriter, if you want to be able to 2 to 3x your business just by picking the right words, you need the full thing, right? And my hope is by telling you that, but I'm going to get another 5 to 10% to actually complete the course. And so here's the deal. If you want to make real money, if you want the power to rapidly scale businesses, go grab your phone, get in the calendar app, and put in a date and time that you're going to work on this every week. If you're crazy, you want to do this in 21 days straight, be my guest. Otherwise, if you're busier than that, schedule 2 days a week. It'll take 2 hours roughly each week for lecture time and 2 hours to practice it yourself. And it's really hard to commit to it, I know. So seriously, text a friend, tell them that you're doing this, ask them to hold you accountable, or go into the comment section. There's a bunch of people here who are trying to do exactly what you're doing. And last thing before we jump in together, I want to just say a quick prayer blessing over this course. It's a slightly modified quote from Thomas Aquinas' Prayer of Study, focused specifically on the parts relevant to copywriting. And I believe that every good and perfect gift comes from above. So I want to thank him for everything he's done for me. Bless this course and hopefully all of you at home. And if this prayer isn't for you, that's okay. It's a quick prayer. And the rest of the course is secular. It's not going to be filled with me trying to convert you or anything. I just want to kick things off right by saying thank you. Dear God, you make eloquent the tongues of infants. Refine my speech and pour forth upon my lips the goodness of your blessing. Grant me keenness of mind, capacity to remember, skill in learning, subtlety to interpret, and eloquence of speech. May you guide the beginning of my work, direct its progress, and bring it to completion. Amen. All right, let's do this thing. You probably remember this meme. It's a couple years old, but basically there's 3 rules of geniehood. No wishing for death, no falling in love, and no bringing back dead people. But then the wisher wishes for something crazy, like for all puppies to be dead. And the genie says, all right, there's 4 rules, right? There's things you can't do. Well, in copywriting, there are only 4 rules. You need to write emotionally, not logically. We like to think that we think and make decisions logically, but the truth is we don't. We might justify logically. We might need a little bit of logic sprinkled in to help us make the decision, but ultimately I don't want a cookie for logical reasons. I want it because it makes me feel good, because it's ooey gooey delicious dripping chocolate when I rip it apart, right? You have some visceral words that kind of make you imagine what it might feel like in your mouth, and that's something that's not that serious. You might say, like, what about a car, right? I don't want a car because it goes fast and gets me to work. I mean, I do, but the main thing that I want there is maybe to express something about my identity, right? Do I want a truck because I'm a rugged kind of guy? I like doing outdoorsy stuff. Do I want a BMW because I don't know how to drive and I want to tell everyone on the road that I don't know how to drive? See, these are important things when you're selecting a car. And you might be expressing your individuality or your sense of freedom, or get a sense of power from your car. You got a big, powerful car. That's much more important than the logical component. But you still want to know miles per gallon, the size of the engine, or something like that. So you need a mix, but it should always be more emotional than logical. Next step is you should think like your audience. Your audience, like I said, are you the truck buyer? Or are you the car buyer? You're going to have different things that you care about. You're going to have different ways that you dress, different places you hang out, different things that you aspire to. And that's all going to impact how you need to talk to them. And so it's very important to ask the right questions and do your research before you get started. Once you understand your audience, then you need to get their attention, tell a story, and move them to a destination. There is a 3-part framework that all good stories are made from. Whether it's your 5-paragraph essays in high school, or whether it's a blockbuster movie, you have an intro, a body, a conclusion. You have your hook. You have the bulk of your content, and then you have some sort of a call to action or a summary at the end, right? You always have this tripartite structure. And as marketers, typically the way that this works is to hook them, tell a story. And that story could be formatted like a movie might be, but it also might be like, here's how my experiment went. But you start with something and kind of move towards a destination. And then at the end, you have your destination, you have your call to action. What do you want them to do next? And that is the tripartite story structure for marketing. And then once you do that, it kind of sounds like there's a lot going on here. Like, we've got to make sure we have the right formula of the right amount of logic to lots of emotion. We need to think like our audience. We need to research them and understand how they think and feel and what they aspire to before we even get started. Then we have this tripartite structure that we have to make sure that we nail in order to get attention, keep it, and get them to take action. But we need to make it simple. I think it's Einstein who says, and don't quote me, I wasn't planning on saying this, but I think it's Einstein who says something to the effect of, if you can't explain it simply, you don't really understand it. And the same is true for copywriting. You have to be able to say something simply in order to really be persuasive. It's just the way it goes. People don't like being talked down to, like they're being talked to by, an engineer who designed the product. They want to be talked to almost like it's them, like it's a trusted peer telling them why they want something and why they need something. On the other hand, when you make something simple, you don't want to dumb it down. You don't want to make it, you don't want to make it empty. You want to make it full, overflowing with emotion. You want to make it evocative, right? And so that's a balance you always have to strike between simplicity and motivation. And they can totally coexist fully. You're not having to sacrifice, but that is one of the hardest parts of copywriting. But those are the only 4 rules. And if you do those 4 things, you're gonna master copywriting. Good for you. But obviously that's easier said than done. So if you want to master those 4 rules, here's how you do it. All right, writing emotionally, not logically. We already talked a little bit about this, but one of the core ways that you can do this is think about features versus benefits. This is logic versus emotion, right? So a feature in a really fast car might be a V8 or a V10 or a V12 engine, even though I think naturally aspirated V12s are pretty much done for in the world, but we'll see. Anyways, all that being said, that's a feature. You say, and I'm not that much of a car guy, so forgive me, if I'm totally off, but like, let's say it's a 3.5 liter V8 engine. All right, that sounds all good. That's a feature. That's something you get. And for the most part, that's not going to persuade anyone. The only exception there, you see it in the bottom left-hand corner, is someone who's very educated or really ready to buy. They've done all their research. They know what Bugatti has. They know what Lamborghinis have. They know what Ferraris have. They know what BMWs have. They know what Mercedes has. And they are just kind of in the test driving mode. What do I like the feel of? Where do I get the best bang for my buck? Those sorts of things. They are going to be more persuaded by facts and numbers and those kind of factual things than the average buyer. But they still care about benefits. That's something you need to remember, is you want the V8 engine because you want to feel happy. You want to feel unrestrained. You want to feel powerful when you're driving. You want people to look at you. You want to throw the valet your keys and have everyone, what's the James Bond line? Women wanted to be with him and all the men wanted to be him. That's what this V8 engine, what the supercar is giving you, right? And you need to be able, even for someone who knows the facts and figures that they want to go after, they're still persuaded by that storytelling of the benefits of what life might be like. So you need to make sure that you're emphasizing those in your marketing. All right, you need to think like your audience. And we already talked about this, but it's extremely key. And I'm not going to take credit for this at all. Dan Kennedy wrote these. So there's kind of this history of copywriting. Claude Hopkins is generally considered the grandfather of modern advertising, late 1800s, early 1900s. He teaches David Ogilvy, who's kind of like the madman era of marketing. And then you have Dan Kennedy, who comes after David Ogilvy, and he writes this whole series called No BS Marketing. He's kind of like the main thinker in the space. He has 20 plus books, I'd say. I've read a lot of them. They're fantastic. And he's inspired basically anyone who you can think of today who's a major kind of marketing guru. They've read Dan Kennedy. They're probably mostly inspired by Dan Kennedy. I'm thinking of people like Russell Brunson or Alex Hormozi. These are big names. They learned from Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy still has a newsletter with ClickFunnels. He's a big shot. You should listen to what he says. But he has the 12 profiling questions that are so good that I didn't think to reform them or add to them or subtract them at all. So verbatim, here are his 12 profiling questions. What keeps them awake at night? That's kind of like your main problem. What makes them angry, afraid, or sad? Those are two huge things, but something you need to focus on in your marketing is that you have to balance positive emotions and negative emotions. And for the most part, you don't want to focus on negative emotions. It's weird because that's what makes people buy, but it's almost like, think of your negative emotions as like acid in a dish if you cook. Is you don't want to eat lemons for dinner, right? But a squeeze of lemon goes a long way in your dish. It's very important to talk about your negative emotions, which is why it's at the top of this list. But if your whole ad is not selling the dream of what life could be like, it's talking about how miserable your life is, people aren't going to buy from you. They're going to click away. It's very unpleasant to deal with you, right? So you need to make sure that you sprinkle in the negative stuff, even though it may be one of the most important ingredients in your dish. Next, we're going to go into the positive ones. What makes them happy? What drives them to be better? So we're getting the positive stuff. What are their daily frustrations? What trends are occurring in their lives? So now we're kind of going at what keeps them awake at night. These are real world things that's happening to the customer, but a trend could be, gas is expensive, which could be what keeps them awake, but it may not be. It may not be quite that visceral. They might just be getting super dragged down with how expensive everything is when they go to the grocery store, right? I know we're all dealing with that. That's a trend in pretty much everyone's lives. Maybe it's, in my industry, I do a lot of information-based products. It's like, all right, well, information products are becoming significantly less popular over time, unless they're extremely high value, of course. And so that's a trend that's going on. It doesn't necessarily keep me awake at night, but it's a trend, right? What do I secretly want most? That's huge. That's the reverse of what keeps them awake at night. What do they dream about? What are their firm beliefs and what are their shakeable beliefs? So let's say you don't like plastics, right? Are you confident that plastic is bad for you? Or could someone persuade you that plastic was kind of okay? Even though you kind of generally have a feeling that it's not that great. That's the difference in a firm belief and a shakeable belief. And why that matters is one of the most popular things you can do as a copywriter is to do something that's basically myth busting, right? You're going to say, you're wrong about this. Well, if that's someone's firm belief, they're not going to respond the same way as they would with a shakable belief. So shakable beliefs represent this area in marketing that we're able to really kind of get someone, like they're going to be more hooked by being like, I really thought that was true. Wait, what's going on? If it's a little bit more shakable, you have a good hook in there. If it's more firm, then you probably want to either make a different product for this consumer, or you need to not address the consumer at all, right? It's more about selecting who you're going to, or kind of establishing rapport with someone. If you have the same firm beliefs as your audience, now we're getting along, we're friends, and you're more likely to like me and buy from me. What is their bias? Apparently, what is their bias? So everyone has a bias at coming into things. Maybe they hate plastic. Maybe they love cheeseburgers. Maybe they think cheeseburgers aren't that great. I bring this up because I have a thing later on in the course where I talk about how cheeseburgers are actually the best food for bodybuilders. That's one of my examples. So maybe you believe that's true. Maybe you think that's impossible. Maybe you're a vegan. Maybe you hate beef, right? These are all important things for what their bias is. I have to figure out who my ideal audience is and how I can sell to them. And finally, do they have their own language? Obviously, backpackers versus vegans versus meat eaters versus car buyers are all going to talk about things a little bit differently. My best Top Gear knowledge is that we have a naturally aspirated V12. You're getting about as advanced as I can go there. I don't sell cars, so it's not something I've had to learn. But I have worked in saltwater fishing industries. That one's totally different than most information products. People are going to be talking about it a little bit differently. They're going to say, there's this inshore slam that when you catch 4 different fish of a specific species, right? It's like, or of varying species, excuse me. That's an important little keyword there. You're like, it's the slam, right? If you catch nothing on your day out, you got skunked. And that's not exclusive to fishing, but that's something that happens in a couple different sports where you get skunked. But these are important terms that people will viscerally react to and realize that you're in their in-group when you write to them. So you need to know what their language is. So once upon a time in marketing, what we do is we'd get 8 to 12 people in a room, and we'd sit them down, show them our product, and interview them. This is called focus testing. We don't do it quite as much anymore. People influence each other. So what we do a little bit more of is like one-on-one customer research and investigation. So we might sit them down with a product and figure out what they think about it. We might sit them down with existing products and ask them what they don't like about it. That's kind of like competitor research. So there's different ways to do it. But as marketers, and especially where you're starting out at, you're going to have to think about the 80-20 of it. In business, in entrepreneurship, in marketing, the 80-20 rule is huge. It's how do you get 80% of the results for 20% of the effort. In this case, we're talking about 80% of the results for 20% of the cost. In fact, it's more like 0% of the cost. So how do you do this customer research without having to give free gift cards to people to do research, sit down with them for hours? Well, you can go to your competitors on Shopify, Yelp, Reddit, Quora, or Amazon and see what people are saying. If it's a cotton t-shirt, or if it's a t-shirt that people really like, and the reviews are, hey, this is super soft, I really like it, it's breathable, it fits me in all the right ways, but what I don't like is that it's polyester and nylon, and I really wish it was 100% cotton. Okay, great. If I'm an entrepreneur, now I'm going to make a product that actually solves that problem for people. But if I'm not an entrepreneur, if I'm a marketer, now I know, hey, this is a selling point. This is a unique selling proposition, a USP that is going to make my product stand out over the others. I should emphasize that, right? So that's a really important way to figure out what people are doing, what they're saying, and you can figure out what their exact language is here because they're leaving the reviews. So, you might say, instead of saying, I love this shirt, you might say, my wife loves me in this shirt, right? You're appealing to something deeper. They're saying those words. If you see it like 7 different times in the review section, that's probably a big deal. You should probably talk about it. So that's a big way to do customer research on the cheap. And even if you have the research to do one-on-one customer interviews, this kind of free customer research is totally invaluable, and you should be doing it anyways. Now, getting their attention. This is one of the most important parts. Actually, every time I do this, I'm like, hey, look, it's the exact shape of a funnel that I need back here. But in any funnel, let's say it's YouTube, right? You're going to start over here with everyone watching that's 100% visitors, and it's going to slowly go down. It's actually going to rapidly fall down and then kind of tail out like that. That's just the way that marketing funnels go, is you get the most people at the beginning. Same thing with a funnel, is you have a lot of people at the top of the funnel, and by the end of it, there's less and less people, but these people at the bottom are closer to buying. But the best way to get results in marketing is to follow that 80-20 rule. 80% of your results are going to be focusing on just getting more people into the top of the funnel. And the rest of the 20% of your time can be optimizing it, getting it just about right. But it's really good to focus on the biggest parts to get the biggest results. It's just kind of intuitively true, right? So you need to be able to get people's attention. How do you do that? With a good headline most of the time. And I'm going to be giving you 50 of my favorite headlines. There's going to be a downloadable resource. It's going to be up on the page for a second. But before that, I think we should jump into the theory. I have my face really dark right now, so I'm going to turn that on. We're going to jump into the theory of what makes a good headline. And I've got 16 general headline strategies here that I think you're going to like. Okay, so the headline strategies. The first one is just to be provocative. You want to get attention, say something that confuses people. I almost died. I'm quitting. PewDiePie, oh my gosh, this dude will not stop doing some version of I'm quitting. And then you get inside and it's like, I'm quitting making this series of video or whatever he does, right? You have to justify at the end. This angle works really, really well, but it does burn people out if you do it too much. They stop believing you. You're the boy who cried wolf. So there's a little bit of a warning there that maybe you should be selective with how often you use that and make it true when people get on the inside, but it's a great way to get attention for sure. You can bust a myth. We talked about this earlier. Everyone thinks avocados are the good fat. You could say avocados are ruining your health. Here's why. And you don't give them the answer in the headline. You make them go inside to actually figure it out. You can challenge their beliefs, which is pretty similar. You say, stop running on the treadmill. Do this instead. They believe that running on the treadmill is good for losing weight. There you go. We've challenged their beliefs. So those two are pretty similar. A bust a myth that could be different would be like, I don't even know. Anyways, 2-option question. Are you a Republican or a Democrat? You automatically force people into this binary. They kind of pick a side mentally. They wonder why you're asking the question. For some reason, this seems to be really impactful and people, pick a side really fast. In fact, for display marketing, which is like images online, that are on different websites. They're like the image ads. If you're doing that, one of the best campaigns you can run is the 2-option question, and it feels like you're voting. You say, are you Vertex or Team Vertex or Osprey, right? And so you're going to pick backpacks, and they're two totally different demographics. One's kind of the tactical crowd. One's the granola REI crowd, right? And you're gonna make people pick between the two of them. And then they're gonna go to a page where they actually vote when they click on that. But it's an incredibly effective campaign. You could say, do you think Republicans are gonna lose the next election or win it? And obviously you're gonna get some really visceral reactions from that, one way or another. And then you can send people to different landing pages based on how they vote when they click through. It's a very, very powerful display ad. People love to share their opinions on stuff, so that's a super powerful headline strategy. Paradox. Why billionaires don't go to college. This is sort of like busting a myth and challenging people's belief, but it actually hides the premise a little bit, where you say, we kind of expect people who go to college to make more money in general, but a lot of billionaires don't go to college. Why is that? It's confusing to us. So it's great to bring up that paradox because we're going to respond to it and be confused and be like, wait, what is happening? Click in, watch the video. That's how it goes. Strong promise. This is where we kind of get into the benefit territory. So you might say, I'll help you lose 50 pounds. That's a strong promise. One thing you can do that I did in my example here is I coupled that benefit with a reduction in time and sacrifice. So Alex Hormozi has this thing called the value equation. And on top, you have your dream outcome and you have your perceived likelihood of achievement. So the bigger those things are, the more valuable your product is. And then on the bottom, it's time and sacrifice. And the less time and sacrifice it takes to accomplish your dream outcome and that you think you can actually do, the more valuable everything is. So another powerful combo you can do is the strong promise with less sacrifice. So here I say, lose 50 pounds with this method, land your dream job in 30 days. So the dream job in 30 days, it's saying like, hey, it's actually not that long. If you just say land your dream job, it could be like, it'd take me 5 years to do that, right? In 30 days, that's a pretty fast timeline. That would be awesome if you can do that. The number benefit, this one exercise, these 3 exercises that will give you 6-pack abs. The 3 exercises everyone needs to do to get 6-pack abs, right? Different ways of doing it, but this is what's basically called the listicle. You have some number that's typically under 10, like probably even over 7. where it seems like, oh, just a handful of things I have to do. And you're going to go through, here's tip number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And when you organize those tips, just talking about retaining people, it's actually best to lead with your second best tip first and leave your very best tip for the end and tell people that you're doing that. It's a great way to keep people engaged. It's the power of the listicle. Finally, on this screen at least, we have the big specific numbers. So instead of having a small number that we go after, which is this 1 exercise, this 3 exercise, the 5 exercises, we're going to say this app that brought in 1,318,732 people and taught them Spanish. And what's really impactful about this, I think I don't know if Claude Hopkins developed it, but he's certainly one of the first people to talk about it. It's just saying like, hey, this will 10x your business is not that impactful. But if you say this increases your business by 14.71%, it looks more scientific, it looks more specific, so it feels more real. So the big number gets people's attention, but when it's very specific, people take it more seriously. It's a great tactic. So you should actually do your research and find some real numbers that are motivating to people. All right, 9 through 16, let's do it. Dollar signs. Again, you can be specific with a number. You don't have to be. Mr. Beast, we're going to be like, giving away $5 million. That dollar sign, people love money. It is what it is. People are going to pay attention to that. Credible names, you say why Elon Musk is wrong, why Jeff Bezos is wrong. You know, people have opinions about celebrities, and by using those credible names, it could be a niche-based name. I could say why Claude Hopkins is right or wrong, right? But using that name, people already have like pre-formed opinions on them, and so they can be extremely powerful to use in your marketing. This just happened. This feels like modern news. And actually, while I was writing this, which was like months ago, because it took me a long time to put this course together, Meghan and Harry, I think she was maybe putting out her new TV show and everyone was complaining about it. So it was just kind of fresh on my mind. So it's like, this just happened. Did Meghan and Harry just break up? No, they didn't. But I was one of those people who was annoyed by everything. So I was like, maybe good for Harry. So this just happened. You've got your breaking news. And then the success story, it says how Harry finally broke free. Get out of there, Harry. Go serve your kingdom. Anyways, that's the success story. You say, oh man, this is something that people want. They want to break free. They want to get 6-pack abs. They want to land their dream job, right? These are the benefits. These are the main goals, the dream outcome. And you say how so-and-so did this. It's one person, how they achieved it. That's a success story, and it's very powerful. Things that go together. This is really powerful on kind of really anywhere, but like YouTube would be a good one. But where I think of this, like sort of the quintessential example is when you're on a digital newspaper, you're on New York Times or whatever, or Wall Street Journal, whatever it might be, and you see the ads on the side that seem kind of clickbaity, right? This is one of the very popular clickbaity headlines where you say things that don't go together. How Beyblades might lead to nuclear war. And you're like, that's not even possible. Why would that happen? What is going on? How Miley Cyrus launched, led to starving kids in Africa, right? Like I am not trying to slander Miley Cyrus. That is a totally fabricated example. She did nothing wrong. Sorry, it's just what I came up with. But that's a great way to do it. And then inside you have to justify, Beyblades are made with plastic and metal, and some of them require electronics. So now we're getting to the essential parts of everything that's manufactured in China, and China and the United States are kind of at each other's throats, or at least posturing, and they are both nuclear superpowers, so that would not be good. All right, great. So now we've somehow justified how Beyblades might lead to nuclear war, because instead of producing them in the US, we keep producing them in China. It is what it is, right? So we can kind of position things that way and get people's attention, but then actually justify it in the article in a way that isn't quite so crazy. For the industry, so this is more like identifying a niche. So you say, hey, small business owners. So small business owners are going to see that and go, wait, what is that? So small business owners do this to stay profitable. Great. I'm a small business owner. I want to stay profitable. What do I do? Good headline. The topic within the topic. So this is kind of a combination of things that we've talked about, but the key is that you put it inside parentheses at the end. You identify something at the end they want to do. So you say 3 ways to get jacked. What do you want to emphasize inside? Do you want to emphasize that there's less time and sacrifice? Great, in 30 minutes or less. Do you want to emphasize that this is 3 ways to get jacked for small business owners because they don't have a lot of time? They're staying really busy, right? Okay, so we can change what we want to emphasize, but always put the thing you want to emphasize inside those parentheses. And finally, the question and answer. Can't eat enough calories. These recipes will have even hard gainers getting jacked. All right. And it's really important to mention, I never say can't eat enough calories. Just eat super calorie dense food. Okay, you gave me the answer in the headline, right? I'm not going to click through and watch it, but you should. You should not give away the answer and kind of hint at it in the headline so people go into your article or your video or whatever and actually see what's on the other side. All right, I told you that I would be delivering this. Also, in the downloadables, there's a resource that has some of my favorite headlines, but these are good examples of different formulas you can use. But again, sometimes these aren't going to be perfect. Sometimes you're going to need something unique, and it's much better to have those basic principles to go back to than to just be kind of like, oh, these are the only 50 I can use in my entire copywriting career, because these will get stale. But when you're stuck and you find yourself kind of generating the same thing over and over again, this can get you out of a rut. All right. Now, maybe one of the most important parts is once you get their attention, because kind of everyone can get attention. Typically in marketing, like once upon a time in Claude Hopkins and David Ogilvy days, pre-internet, what you do is you would always start in direct mail. So you'd be mailing people, and all you have is the outside of the envelope to get people's attention. So you write something on it, you highlight some sort of a benefit, you do it in handwriting so it doesn't look so corporate. Like there's a lot of different strategies, but that's where everyone starts. And today that's pretty much email. Pretty much everyone's going to get their start. If you're working in professional marketing, you're going to go find someone with a list of a couple thousand people, 10,000 people, 50,000 people, and you're going to have to get them to open it. And if you're not very good, you're going to get less than 20%. If you're pretty okay, you're going to get 20 to 30% open rates. And if you're really good, you're going to get 40 to 60% open rates, right? That's pretty good, but you'll learn that quickly. Within your first year, you'll be great at doing that. And then the thing that will set you apart from the okay marketers is that you know what to do with them afterwards. Obviously, there's people who are insanely good at this. Mr. Beast probably is the example there, where you make like killer headlines and killer thumbnails and get everyone to click through and watch, right? Even if they don't really want to engage with your sort of content, they can't help but do it. Yes, there are people who are exceptional at this, but you'll get suitably good at this really quickly. And then it's important to learn how to tell a story, right? So I told you it's kind of a 3-part structure. You always have your beginning, middle, and end. You have your intro, your hook, your story or your experiment or whatever you're kind of revealing, and then your conclusion or your call to action in the example of marketing. So what we're kind of focusing on here is the rising action in crisis, right? So if you're trying to lose weight, the inciting incident might be like, hey, my wife told me she wasn't attracted to me anymore. Ouch, that's not good. That's a harsh inciting incident. So now we're getting the rising action. So I go to the gym every day. I do it for 12 weeks and I actually gained 4 pounds. Ouch, that's not very good. So anyways, then I started going for 3 hours a day. I was cutting 1,500 calories out of my diet every single day. I was miserable and still nothing was working. All right, so that's more like the crisis. And then we go, until I discover this one thing, and I'm going to give it to you here. I'm kind of treating this like an email. If it were a landing page, you'd say, here's what I discovered, buy it from me, right? But in an email, you say, click through and watch it. It's just different call to actions. But you see how that's a good story. Now, there are different ways to think about stories. One of them is the 8-sequence structure, which is used in screenwriting. But basically, it's the same thing. You see, it's just kind of giving a name to those in-between parts. So the rising action and crisis become 4 different points. So you say, my first try was working out, and that didn't work very well for 12 weeks. So then I got really serious about it. And I was starving myself and my hands were bleeding from all the work I was doing, and it still wasn't working. So that's my fallout and low point. I was desperate. Nothing was working for me until I discovered this. The only difference is typically in marketing, you're not going to see a resolution very often. It's good to keep up the tension. And at the moment of highest tension, that's very important. You see this line here, right? Up, 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 up. Never put your climax down here, right? You always want to strike when the iron is hot. So you're going to increase the tension, and at the very top, you're going to say, and here's the answer, click through to discover what it is, or here's the answer, buy it today. Now, where that's not true is on the back half of that. So after they buy, you can put a resolution on the other side, right? You can say, hey, you did what I wanted you to. Especially if someone just bought, you can resolve it and say, you've just taken the first step towards really radically improving your health. Congratulations, so excited to have you here. You're going to see awesome results like these people. We're looking forward to starting working out with you on Monday, right? So you kind of resolve it and maybe introduce, what the next 12 weeks of this fitness program might be. That's a great move. But for the most part, creating tension is good for getting people to show up and take action. And that's why even at the end of that, you're saying like, oh, here's what you're going to expect the next 12 weeks. See you Monday, right? We're actually resolving one and starting another. So that's how you make your 3-act structure. And the reason why I like to think about this as a 3-act structure instead of an 8-act structure, this is great if you're like, wait, what do I say here? How do I even tell a story? This is helpful, right? The reason why I like to think of it as a 3-act structure is because we have all these writing formulas that you can use. And you can see that besides 3 of them here, all of them are through 3 parts, right? They're problem, agitate, solve, before, after, bridge, hook, story, offer. And as I go through these, I think you'll realize that they're actually way more similar than you give them credit for. I think people put way too much emphasis on writing formulas. Again, it's helpful if you're getting into a rut and doing the same thing over and over again. But once you realize that more or less you're doing the same thing in just slightly different orders, okay, all right, I know how to write. I got it. So problem, agitate, solve. This is one of my favorites. I write in this all the time. So you say, can't lose weight. Did your wife tell you she's no longer attracted to you? Do people not respect you at work? Is it because you used to be an athlete and now you hunch over all the time? You're depressed because you're not in good shape. I've really agitated them at this point, right? This is one of those heavily negative angles that I was talking about, but it creates a lot of tension. And I would not do this for a whole landing page, but it works really well in shorter form stuff. So if you have either an email or a bridge page would be like, I made an ad here and I need to convince them to click through the ad and watch a longer video. The shorter something is, the more you can go with a really negative angle, because it creates a lot of tension fast, right? So then you go, oh, but I solved the problem, get it in this video. That's the soft part. So that's a tripart one. So then we have the before after bridge. You say, before life was like this, I was out of shape. After I've been feeling great, I move great. I can play with my kids. And the secret was this thing, get it in the next video. Okay, it's a little bit different because I spent more time talking about this dream outcome of theirs. All right, that's a little bit different. Hook, story, offer. It could look like either of those, right? So we have the hook, my wife is leaving me. That's the hook, right? The story is that she no longer finds me attractive. I have to do all this stuff. It didn't work. I bled. I tried hard. I worked for 3 hours, but nothing worked until I tried this thing. There's your hook, story, offer, right? It's a good one. You see just how similar all of these are. They're the same kind of fundamental story, but we organize them just slightly differently. Desire, outcome, solution. That's very similar to before, after, bridge, right? We say, what do you want? What is your dream outcome? How do you get it? That is almost all positive. It's almost the exact opposite of a problem, agitate, solve. So I might even give it like a 1-2 combo there, right? I'm going to have my ad, which is a problem, agitate, solve. You're going to click through for the answer on the next page. And the desire is going to say, you've always wanted 6-pack abs. You want to be in better shape. And, ideally your life would look like X, Y, Z. Your wife would love you. Your kids would love to play with you, right? And the secret is this offer, get it here today, right? That's a great way to kind of go negative, 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 positive, positive, positive. Problem, picture, push. You're going to see what your life is like. What's bad about it. You're going to picture something that's good and you're going to push them to take action. Very similar to the before, after bridge, but just a little bit pushier. And the disrupt, intrigue, click. That's like get attention, keep them interested, and get them to click, which is really similar. Here's the only difference between the 3-steppers and the 4 and 5-steppers is like the 8-sequence structure improves upon the 3-act structure. The 4 and 5 just kind of add a little detail in there, right? So for disrupt, intrigue, click, that's basically the same as the AIDA formula, which is used in a lot of ads. The only difference is they pay special attention to the intro. So the disrupt is filled with attention and interest. So you need your 2 seconds. What's your visual hook? What's your hook? And then what's your first 10 to 30 seconds? What's your interest generating mechanism? So they break that out a little bit. And then you have desire, which is pretty similar to intrigue. It's like, all right, now you've got a couple of minutes to convince me what's great about this. And then action, take action and click. So that's AIDA. For PP, it's problem, picture, push, except we add in one more, which is proof. So before we push, we say, let me show you that it really works, right? Okay, that's a great little addition there. And then for problem, agitate, solve, we also have what's the pass op, which is problem, agitate, solve, outcome problem. So this is where you can actually give away, when you say solve, you actually solve it. You say, the problem was that I couldn't work out. No one liked me. My wife didn't like me. I didn't like me. I was working out for 3 hours a day. It wasn't working. My hands were bleeding until I discovered this secret. I was doing too much cardio. I needed to focus on generating muscle. All right, so now I've solved it. I have to lift heavy. But the problem, and if I did that, now I've kind of resolved it. But when you give something that kind of takes tension away, you can actually temporarily relieve it and then pull it back, and it makes people really, really uncomfortable, right? So that's what we want to do here. So we're going to say, great. And once you do that, once you start working out, you'll have XYZ. Your life will be better like this. But there's a problem. I didn't know how to do that. It was way too complicated. It took too much time and sacrifice. I didn't know the right steps, right? I was too weak. I didn't have the money to support the diet that I needed in order to lift that heavy, right? There's lots of different things I could do there that introduce a new second problem, and my actual thing that I'm solving is that second problem. That's a great way to do it, and it's a great way if you feel kind of scammy, just not giving answers in your emails or in your videos and always pointing to something afterwards. It's a great way to actually deliver on value and then still sell something at the end of it. So that's a personal favorite as well. All right, so like I said, a lot of those 3-form structures will work for pretty much anything, but there are a lot of different places you can use stuff. You can use it in emails, you can use it in ads, you can use it on landing pages, you can use it on websites, you can use it on your Shopify store, you can use it in your direct mail campaign that you're sending out to people, you can use it in a webinar or a TV ad, whatever it might be. Those formulas are pretty universal. But on a landing page, often what's happening is you have a bunch of people who may know more, may know less about what you're offering, but you have a lot of information to give them. This is the point where it's not just about getting attention and keeping it, it's about actually convincing them that what you're offering is worth it. So there's a little bit more that needs to be included here. And there's a lot of different landing page philosophy out there. Dan Kennedy has some great checklists that I'll tell you about later that have 30 things that you need to include. He comes from a very direct response world of things, right? Where it's all right, you have to have this and this and this and this. And what ends up happening from that is you have insanely long landing pages that take you 20, 30 minutes to read through. And that's great. That's called a sales letter. It's very impactful. It works. Maybe you don't have the time to do that. Maybe that's not right for your product or your audience, right? So what I did is I simplified it. So regardless of how pushy or how knowledgeable your audience is, literally every 12 pages literally every page you put together, every landing page or web page or Shopify page or whatever it might be needs these 12 things. And you can spend more time on them or less time on them depending on how pushy you want to be. But these are the essential 12. And if you know anything about shotguns, shotguns are pretty versatile. They're not going to be as good as a rifle for long distance stuff, but they can do long distance stuff. And they're not going to be as good as, a cannon for close quarters combat, but they're going to be more mobile. So they do everything kind of well, right? Even though the Geneva Convention hates them. But anyways, all that being said, the shotgun is pretty reliable, and 12 gauge and page rhyme, which is a great way to make a title. So this is a 12 gauge landing page. It works in pretty much all situations. So we have the 4-step webinar framework. Oh man, what I should have said is for handguns and rifles, they have more bullets, but this has some bullets and typically 4 to 5. And anyway, it is what it is. Enough about shotguns. The webinar framework. So typically most people agree that there's a 4-act structure here. The only way it's different is if people like the 5-step, which is the intro also gets a story involved in it. Again, it's just one of those simple breakout things where you're okay, is your intro an intro and a story, or is it a hook and a story? And do we need to name those different things? I don't know. Whatever. The 4-step framework, tell a story in step 1 if you want to. But you're going to have your intro where you're going to kind of make people trust you, give them a reason to stick around, hopefully talk about what we call what's in it for me. Say, what are you even going to learn here, right? Maybe tell a story about the way that this worked for you or a customer. And then you're going to get in the content where you actually teach people something. You're going to have the transition because of the pitch at the end where you're actually promoting something. And you have this very important transition area because people don't like you just teaching them and saying, hey, buy my stuff. It's not very impactful. and people respond to it very poorly. So you have to have a good transition. Now, I think there's this popular perception that webinars are dead and they're not very popular. And I think that's because so many marketers, those darn marketers, always ruining everything, they kind of don't deliver on the content part, right? They give just a little bit away, and it is what it is. It's true, it works, right? You don't want to give that much away because you have something that you're selling at the end. But there's a way to do it that actually provides more value to people. The thing is, you don't want to overwhelm them with something. If I made a webinar that had, by the end of this, I assume there's going to be 48 hours worth of content. If you did that, no one's going to watch it, no one's going to remember it, and they're actually not going to get the value that they wanted. You may think, I just packed more value into this, but you made it too complicated, right? And most people aren't coming for that complicated of a thing, at least not yet. So you don't have to feel bad about pulling back on some of the information you're providing. Ideally, you have something that's like 3 to 5 steps that's super high value. But one of the best examples I've ever seen that's technically a webinar was like how to cut your own hair. And technically, there might be like 8 or 9 different steps in there, but it feels like one, right? And so the main thing is you're just going to teach people the content. Now, the reason why this works is because the thing you're selling is not hair cutting services. The thing that you're selling is a pair of clippers. And so that's a great way to provide a lot of value in your content area and give everything away. And then say, oh, by the way, I'm an affiliate for this $200 set of hair clippers. You should pick them up. They're awesome, right? That's a great way to deliver a ton of value, not feel scammy, and still use a webinar to your advantage. And it doesn't even feel like a webinar. It feels like a huge tutorial with a pitch on the end. That would work super well on YouTube, right? All right, so that's the webinar framework. Now, making it simple. This is, again, I feel like I say this every time I get to a new step, but this might be the most important part. If you're an expert in something, if you've done a ton of research, you can make it complicated for people. But that's not how people are motivated. They want things to seem simple. It makes it seem like you know what you're talking about. It makes it easy for them to understand and get on board with. So it's very important to know how to write simply. There's a couple of different, there's like, I think 5 different things, let's just say. 5 different things that you're going to have to do in order to write more simply. One of them is just to use common words. Don't sound like a pompous Ivy League graduate. Use common words. Claude Hopkins talks about this, where he said, there are people who have form and substance to the writing. They took all the creative writing classes. They understand how to use these literature tools. And it's actually a handicap, because when you're selling to buyers, you just need to talk like the common man. So if you're like hanging out with plumbers and everything every day, that's what you need. You need to know how the common man talks about things, and then you can sell to them. Of course, that's a little bit different if you're doing like B2B sales, for example, and you need to sell to, people who are working air-conditioned office spaces. Well, all right, maybe you want to dress up your language a little bit and use a bunch of obnoxious corporate jargon, which is why I said that you need to know what kind of language people use. So you can dress it up occasionally, but for the most part, even the average person just wants something that's easy to read and easy to understand and sounds like you know what you're talking about. So don't say likewise, say and. Don't say in addition to, say also. Don't say nevertheless, say but. Don't say for this reason, just say so. Use less words and use smaller words. That's it. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it can be that simple when you're writing. Use verbs. Use lots of them. Don't keep describing things. Like this isn't a pretty novel, right? We're not going to say, oh, I was skiing down the slope, the steep slope, and shards of splintery ice shards flew into my eyes, right? There's a lot of kind of flowery, verbose stuff there. You say, I slid down the hill. The icy wind cut into me. It hurt. I thought about giving up. There are at least 4 verbs there. It's a lot more impactful when you have lots of verbs of doing things. And it actually makes your writing itself move along faster. So use lots of verbs. Same thing with shorter words and less complicated words and less words. Use shorter sentences. Don't do the paragraph thing for the most part. We'll talk about how to do that a little bit later on in the course. That's why I said you can't just do this in 2 hours, guys. It's like you need to learn the principle and then learn where you can pull back just a little bit. So first things first, that on the left, you don't want to read that. And it's only 4 lines and it's only like 10 words wide, but still it's way less easy to read than what's on the right. I went to the store. I saw a man. He was wearing a blue shirt, but something seemed off. All right, great. That's a lot easier to read. You can see, but he seemed a little strange. You don't need to say a little strange, something was off. A little shorter, a little bit more concrete, a little bit more layman, and it's more impactful. Finally, ditch the affix. So I'd never heard this word. This is written about in The Art of Plain Talk, but it's prefixes and suffixes. If you're talking about both of them, it's an affix. So it's basically just saying use shorter words, right? Supersede. You got 3 syllables there. You could say more important. That's 3, but at least those are more common words. Do this first. 3 very simple words, same amount of syllables, but it's way less complicated than supersede. Everyone knows what do this first means. For the most part, that works. Occasionally, there's going to be times where a word is so ubiquitous, you just use it. So for example, democracy. Yeah, people know what democracy is. I don't care if it's 3 syllables. I don't care if it has a prefix and a suffix. You're not going to say rule by the people. I mean, occasionally you might, just to not use the same word 50 times in a paragraph, but not from a simplicity standpoint. You're not going to say, in the United States, we have rule by the people. Just say it's a democracy, right? It works. It's fine. Just do it. And it's not a democracy. It's a republic, but it is what it is. It's a democratic republic. Anyways, capitalism. You can say free markets. People know what capitalism is, though, so you're not hurting them too bad. In I think the next slide we'll talk about, it's basically a calculation you can do. You're allowed to occasionally use slightly longer words. It's just a lot easier instead of counting everything, just to try and reduce it where you can. And then you're like, no, everyone knows what that word is. Just keep it. If it's 1 out of 20 that's a little bit longer and everyone knows what it is, you're fine. So finally, perpetuate. This is one where we actually can cut down on those 3 syllables. So we say continue, and then we say keep doing. I guess it's all 3 syllables actually, but again, we're simplifying like we were at the beginning. All right, so this is the yardstick formula. This was done in The Art of Plain Talk, and I think it's a little complicated. I'm going to show you how it goes here, but it's like you're supposed to add things up and do multiplication for it to figure out like what your score is. And I've simplified it here, right? Look at 100 words of your writing. Are there 12 words or less per sentence on average? I mean, if you have a bunch of them that are 3 and then you follow up with a 15-word sentence, it's fine. Just on average, are you keeping them relatively short so that you're not having like 50-word sentences back to back to back? That sucks. Don't do that. All right. So do you have 12 words or less on average? Do you use less than 20 affixes in 100 words? Just don't even think affixes. Just think small word, big word. Like how many big words do you have in? Is it less than 20% of them? Fine. I'd probably like less than that. I'd say keep it to 10%, but you can use them occasionally. And then use 15 or more personal references. This is I, me, you. And in marketing, typically, you want to talk about the customer, right? You say, you can do this. You can have this. You're probably wondering about this. So you really want to focus actually on the you words, but you can talk about I occasionally, right? You might have a story about the time you did something. So use lots of personal references. It makes it way easier to follow a character along than just to talk about kind of abstract ideas. So follow your characters, use personal references, don't use a lot of big words, and keep your sentences short. That's the whole dang thing. There's more rules. Honestly, I'm just going to leave this up for a second and kind of fly through it, but it's just getting more complicated than it needs to be, right? So use familiar words instead of far-fetched words. Prefer the concrete word to the abstract. So say that someone's smiling. Don't say that they are happy looking. That's weird. Prefer the single word to the circumlocution. All right, so we tell us to use simple words, and then we're using words like circumlocution. But say pen, not writing instrument. That's, again, crazy. Don't say that. This is where I was saying it gets a little bit complicated. So you want the short word, not the long word, which is kind of a complicated way of saying use the Saxon word instead of the Romance, the Latin word. It gets a little bit more technical here, but just the way that it breaks down is the English-based words like burn are way more visceral than Latin words, like old Roman words, right? It would be incinerate. Incinerate is almost like cold and technical, whereas burn is like burn it down, just and that's what Saxon words feel like. So it's a little bit harder to follow. Generally, the good rule of thumb is just think about how the common person talks. Like, we're making it more complicated than it needs to be. Think about how the common person talks. Think about the word that makes you kind of sound pompous to say, and then don't use that word, right? All right. Add pauses in your writing where you're naturally paused. I apparently thought burn versus incinerate was a good example of that. It's not. You use dashes or commas or ellipses like ... Just add them in. It's fine. You want those pauses in your writing. It may not be technically grammatically correct, but it reads a lot better. So screw them. Your prospects vernacular, we talked about that. The inshore slam, no more gobbledygook, just talk normally. Say it multiple times to be clear. A good rule in public speaking is to tell them what you say, tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Crazy enough, that's that 3-part structure we talked about again. That's the intro, that's the body, that's the conclusion. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them the thing, and then tell them what you told them. Easy. Intro, body, summary. Oh, I got one more. My bad. And then read without talking down. This is about talking simply, but still keeping it evocatively. There's a rule that you're supposed to write. There's a rule in copywriting that you're supposed to write for 3rd graders, like write at a 3rd grade level. And I actually think that's bad advice. It's good advice in some ways because you're writing simply. But the temptation you have there is to make it dumbed down, which is not how you don't want to insult your audience by talking to them like they're stupid, right? And I think the best example I've seen that's kind of a counterproductive version is to write to someone whose second language is English. And so you say, this person is probably not ready for big words, but they're ready for big ideas. Keep the words small, keep the ideas big. And you can see a lot of this just boils down to using smaller words and bigger ideas, using smaller words, but using visceral ones that really make people feel emotionally about things. So that's why I was like, I don't know, we're gonna mention these because they're important, but we're gonna fly past them. It's important to keep things evocative though, as simple as you want to make them. So this is where I'm gonna contradict myself a little bit. And I'm not even gonna jump into this because there's no way I can cover this in the short time we have here. This really does deserve its own section, so I'm gonna talk about it later. But as a basic summary, these are all rhetorical devices you might have learned in high school or college, and they make you a better writer. I know Claude Hopkins would maybe not say that this is important, but there's this rule of 3, right? Let's just start there. And you'll see people, good copywriters do it all the time. They'll say, I wanted to do X, but this thing happened. Let's say, I was dreaming of a life where I was free, where I could wake up when I wanted, where I could work with the types of clients I wanted to work with, and where I finally felt like I had control over my life, right? So I'm going to say that 3 times, and they're all going to start with where I. So that's parallelism, right? It's a great way to add emphasis of something. But if you do that over and over again, it kind of becomes an old trick. So I'm not going to get too much into this, but basically my point is there are ways to still write simply, but use different structures to place more emphasis, to make things seem more urgent than they are, or maybe not than they are, but just make things seem more urgent, to help people remember what you're saying, to maybe exaggerate, to prove a point, to say something that people really, really think is true, and maybe to explain something with less words. The words they have for them sound a little complicated, but we're going to make it simpler later on in the course where I'm going to show you how to write really evocatively and still make it feel simple. So don't worry about the slide. If you watch nothing else in the rest of the course, use that rule of 3, and if you can, start your sentences with the same couple of words. And we'll get into everything else later in the course because it deserves its own stuff. So there we go. So the rules of copywriting. There's several people who are going to talk about the 10 commandments of copywriting, whatever. David Ogilvy has, I think, 11 copywriting commandments, but we're gonna be kind of quick about it because we've gone over a simpler one, the 4 rules you need to know. But here are all the different places where you can use copywriting, right? Copywriting is something that is used across literally every form of marketing. And what eventually ends up happening in marketing is you understand how your consumer thinks, what motivates them, what they want, and how to sell them. And by the end of that, you learn how to put words in the right order on a page, but what you've actually done is mastered consumer psychology. Suddenly, you're like, yeah, I'm a copywriter, but I don't know, I'm more than that. I'm a direct response marketer, and I'm gonna come into organizations and say, actually, you're selling the wrong product. Actually, your funnel sucks. Actually, we're gonna we're going to take that over because without even writing a word, I'm going to help you make twice as much money. And then we can write some more words and help you make twice more money again. Suddenly you have 4x the business you had before, right? So copywriting can be used anywhere. They're universal principles. They turn you into a good marketer in general outside of just being a good writer. But those techniques can be used across direct mail, email, landing pages, paid ads, TV, magazine, print, conference booths, VSLs, those are video sales letters, webinars, presentations, and social media. It really does transcend the category. Yeah, there's some slight different rules based on the medium, but for the most part, you're talking about being able to do just about anything when you master these principles. So what are David Ogilvy's 11 copywriting commandments? Again, trying to keep things simple for you. Just stick with those 4 at the beginning, but yeah, these are still important things to keep in mind. I think of them as we're coming to an end today. Think of them as reasons to be studying and to be getting good at things, not necessarily how to write well in the first place. So the copywriting commandments: what you say is more important than how you say it. That's important. I think people think of copywriting as putting the right words in an order. And it's like, well, no, like we want to touch on the real pain points. We want to touch on your real desires. So all those things I said a couple slides ago that I was like, oh, we could talk about them now. But it's not that important. What's more important is that you're hitting the features and benefits right, making it simple and come across. And yeah, you can add another 5% on top by really nailing some of those emotional patterns. But for the most part, you need to focus more on what you're saying, on delivering value, on touching on their innermost feelings, on using those 12 profiling questions effectively. Unless your campaign is built around a great idea, it will flop. That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, you need a good starting point, a good what before you do the how, right? Give the facts. It says the consumer isn't an idiot, she is your wife. And basically what that's saying there is what I said earlier, is don't treat someone like they're in 3rd grade, treat them like English is their second language. Don't dumb it down. Don't belittle your customer. That's crazy. Don't do that. Communicate to them like you love them, but don't use flashy language that makes it unapproachable for them, right? So just give the facts and the information they need. You cannot bore people into buying. There you go. Stop being so boring. Be well-mannered, but don't clown. This is something that's kind of hard, where you can be kind of humorous and polite, but you don't want to be overly polite and you don't want to be overly funny. So take yourself seriously. Be well-mannered, but don't make a joke out of yourself. Make advertising contemporary. This one is really huge, where I think that use your customer's vernacular it does a lot of heavy lifting. And what we're saying there is, once upon a time in the 17 or 1800s, people wrote and spoke differently, especially the people you might be selling to. You might be able to get away with using some of those bigger words. Instead of 20 per 100 words, you might need to put like 30 or 40 in there, because people are going to be persuaded by that, because that's how they talk. But that's not how things are working today. So that's actually less of a universal principle. The percentage of big words, or Latin versus Saxon. If people like Latin words, man, you got to use the Latin words. But you need to make advertising contemporary and write to your audience. Committees can criticize advertisements. They cannot write them. That's just, again, that's not a writing tip. That's like when you get into a company, they're going to say, oh, I don't like this. I think it would be better if we do what? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. They don't have any idea. So it's important to realize that you're going to have critics who say, I don't think that'll work, but it is hard to be a copywriter. It's hard to get things right. It's hard to write the exact right thing that makes hundreds or thousands or millions of people buy, right? So take that with a grain of salt. A lot of people will be able to criticize, but what you're doing is hard. If you're lucky enough to write a good advertisement, repeat it until it stops pulling, which is basically just to mean, why would you run a good ad for just 2 weeks when you can run it for 2 months or 2 years? You can run ads for a really long time as long as it's going to a fresh audience and it's still working. Keep doing it, man. Never write an advertisement which you wouldn't want your own family to read. That one's really important. And I think that's what like scammy people get into, is they're trying to rip people off or sell people a false bill of goods, and no one likes that. So don't do that. Just think about what would you like to be known for, and only write those sorts of things. The image and the brand are important, so pay attention to them. Someone like Aunt Jemima, for example, it's really important to kind of have this like lovable character. ClickFunnels calls it the attractive character flywheel. Have a character that people kind of relate to and like. They're the brand. The colors, yeah, they're important. The typography, yeah, I guess it's important. What we're really talking about is people should have a set feeling about you. Do they like you? Do they trust you? Do they think do they think that you know what you're talking about? If the answer is yes, you have a good image and you have a good brand. And finally is don't be a copycat. The thing is, when you first start out, you will have to beg, borrow, and steal to get good. You'll have to read a lot of really good copy, but your copy will stink. It will never work as well as the first person who does it, right? You'll need to pull together a bunch of different ideas and synthesize them into something new, or else you're just stealing. And it's not just, it's wrong to steal, which it is. It's also saying it won't work as well. This is a great quote from Rudyard Kipling that I really liked, and it really illustrates that well. They copied all they could follow, but they couldn't copy my mind. And I left them sweating and stealing a year and a half behind. Just the way it goes is when you're first learning, yeah, you might have to beg, borrow, and steal and practice. But once you get good enough, you have to realize you have to go out on your own and have good ideas for yourself and not just steal someone else's hook, because you'll only do like 60% as well as people when you're just stealing from them. You have to learn to do it on your own. All right. So a few more rules. Don't try to be too clever. Just be clear. Don't be funny, right? Be conversational. Be controversial, because when you try and be milquetoast, you don't really get anyone's attention. Speak with conviction and proof. Write at a third grade level. I said that. That's one that everyone will talk about, but I'd say write like English is their second language. Saxon versus Latin words. We talked about that. Have a brand voice. This one's kind of. This one's more like when you're working for people. So. Yeah, Aunt Jemima's not a real person. She's not gonna write about her syrup. I don't even think Aunt Jemima's a brand anymore. I think they took it away because it was racist. But anyways, Aunt Jemima, she's not gonna write about her own syrup, but people are gonna connect with Aunt Jemima in a different way than they're going to, the CEO of Benford syrup. I don't even know what that is. It's a bad way to connect. You want it to feel unique and human and real, like someone can trust you, like they believe you, and they like you. So have a good brand voice, generally center it around a person, and yeah, you might be ghostwriting for that person. I've done that several times, but it's the best way to really kind of emphasize people, make people like you. You need to make sales, you need to provide value. Both of those are true, and marketers can forget it in either direction. Direct response copywriters will often make the mistake of just slamming down the words to convert. They burn everyone out, and then their audience is totally tapped, and they'll never sell something to them again because they didn't provide any value. And some people are so stuck on providing value that they basically never ask for the sale. They have a super leaky funnel, so instead of their funnel looking like that, it looks more like that. It's like there's so many people at the top, and they spend a long time in here, and almost no one makes it through the bottom. Don't do that. Ask for sales along the way, but actually provide value. Use urgency and scarcity, but make it genuine. Don't be lying about quitting YouTube, PewDiePie. Unless you're about to quit YouTube and be like, I don't know, guys, I'm having a hard time, right? Okay, that's fine. We get it. Sell the transformation, expanding on features, not benefits. I think I hit that pretty well earlier, but you really care about what your dream life looks like on the other side. So you want to focus on that, not on the naturally aspirated V12 engine, right? It's the power, it's the happiness, focus on that. And finally, there's different things that people can focus on. People are going to be in different mind states depending on who the buyer is. So if they're in a long-term mind state, you can talk to them about fears and dreams and kind of like, oh, what are you going to accomplish in this amount of time? Who do you want to become? When people are kind of backed into a corner, they're only thinking about short-term pains. If they think they're going to get fired this month, they're not thinking about achieving their dreams. They're thinking about keeping their job, right? So then you're talking about pains and wants. You want to keep your job. How do we do it, right? Your pain is that you have this performance review coming up and your performance has not been that great, right? So you have to get into the mind state when you're doing your research of if this person's in a long-term mind state or a short-term mind state. Those are a few things that'll help you write better. And that's it. Again, it all comes down to those 4 rules. But if you want to master it, if you want to get to the point where you're able to kind of write these things off the cuff, where the 3-story structure is ingrained, where the 12 gauge landing page is almost second nature to you, where you're able to write simply and not have to think about dozens of rules. It's just the way that you naturally communicate with people. Then you're going to keep watching You're going to keep watching. You're going to get all the free resources I've given you. You're going to set a time in your calendar that allows you to come back on a certain day and time each week and actually learn the stuff and practice this. You're actually going to do the homework because it's going to make you a better writer. Awesome. You're going to master this. You're going to get clients afterwards because you're going to be writing content that is actually worthwhile. All right. Hate to be this guy. But I remember I actually had a chemistry professor who refused to answer questions. I was paying him tens of thousands of dollars a year. And I always say, oh, it's in the syllabus. And I get annoyed by it too, but it's in the syllabus, guys, I guess. So here's what we're going to cover throughout this course. We're going to talk about how to grab people's attention and never let go. We're going to talk about how to write things that are actually worth reading. We're going to talk about how to not waste your time writing. It would suck to write something really good and not pay attention to design or business or anything like that you need to nail in order for your writing to actually work properly. And finally, we're going to talk about how to write, what to write, and when to write it so that it actually makes sales and grows you a loyal following. All right. Specifically, what are we going to learn? We're going to start with short emails. That's where everyone should start. We're going to talk about long emails, which is really getting into how to keep attention and keep people motivated and really talk a lot about what gets people motivated. Then we're going to move on to email sequences, which is, all right, what do you do with a whole chain of emails like this? Then we're going to get into landing pages and actually start making sales. And then we're going to get out of writing. We're going to say, all right, how do we do video scripts? How are we going to write for things that aren't this long form thing? Because people don't like to read as much as they did before. So now we have video and we're going to write video sales letters. We're going to do webinars and ads. And then we're going to talk about non-direct response stuff. And I think everything should be direct response. Direct response is basically up against brand marketing. So once upon a time in marketing, it's like the TV ad where you say, I'm an insurance company and I hope by the time that you're ready to buy insurance, you have general positive emotions about Jake from State Farm and buy from State Farm. It's like, it is what it is, but it's an important part of marketing. You want people to like you. You want people to trust you. And there's some validity to it. But the problem with brand marketing is they don't get direct feedback after each campaign, whereas direct response marketers do. You say at the end of it, they'll have like coupons. That's in the olden days of like magazine stuff and direct mail and all that. So you had some sort of a way that you get feedback. Now we're getting clicks, we're getting watch time, we're getting, time that they're spending on screen, whatever it is from a digital perspective. But when you're actually getting this direct feedback on like, all right, when I changed the headline from the A test to the B test, it converted 30% better. And I know that because this is what I got more sales, but it's probably because of their psychology, because of XYZ and my research. Okay, I understand this person better. Suddenly, you're not just like guessing anymore at what works. You're really slowly over time working with a specific audience and specific communication tools and saying like, oh my gosh, this is what's working. And so direct response, it can be more pushy or less pushy, but I think you should always be asking for some sort of action afterwards. Whether that's to like and follow, whether that's to read the next blog, or whether that's to get someone to buy or subscribe to your email list or whatever it might be. You should always be writing direct response. But the direct response brand has a bad name because I think they almost always in the past pushed for the sale. So it always felt super pushy. You don't have to be that pushy. You can have a different call to action. But for non-direct response, and by that I mean things that aren't like the long form sales pages, they're emails where you're trying to deliver value, right? We're going to talk about those sorts of things as well and what we can take from good direct response campaigns and bring into our quote unquote non-direct response campaigns and actually make it fire on all cylinders and work way better than most people's in the industry. All right. So now we're getting down into the examples for the day. We're going to talk about some of the great copywriting examples we've seen in the world. We're going to keep going, some more great writing examples, and then we're going to have some homework. So I'm going to get a sip of water and then we'll keep going. Hey, Swipe.co, thanks for doing this and having reverse engineered marketing and copy examples. This is really cool that you do this. This is a cool like little historical thing that you're doing. I don't really like that. Yeah, hide it. I don't want the call outs. But anyways, this is David Ogilvy's thing. Again, I told you he was in like the Mad Men era of advertising. Rolls-Royce was one of his big clients. Really impactful, really great at getting attention, keeping attention, and really nailing those benefits and features and balancing that tension between the two. So let's jump in a little bit to this Rolls-Royce ad. It's not too long, just kind of like a one-pager, and we'll talk about what's good about it and what's not. It's mostly good. At 60 miles an hour, The loudest noise in this new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. So things we did well, we have that number on top. We say 60 miles an hour. That grabs people's attention. Rolls-Royce, we've got a credible name here. But then we have this sort of visceral thing, right? We're using simple words, but an evocative idea. What do we do? Dan Kennedy calls this your 5 sense words. I think that's him. I think that's Dan Kennedy who says the 5 sense words. So we say, all right, I'm hearing something, right? So 60 miles an hour, we're calling out some good things. The loudest noise comes from an electric clock. And when is that happening? At 60 miles an hour. Wow, I'm not even hearing this like roaring, powerful engine. Okay, that's awesome. That's so visceral. I really get what's happening here. And now you've kind of got my attention and really spoken to me. So now we're going to say, what makes Rolls-Royce the best car in the world? There is really no magic about it. It is merely patient attention to detail, says an eminent Rolls-Royce engineer. All right, so we didn't have the engineer talking too technically there. That's nice. And it's put so simply and elegantly, right? There's no magic. It's just attention to detail, which is what you want as Rolls-Royce and Rolex are basically the same thing. They're extreme luxury goods that probably on a material basis are not as expensive as they're being sold for, but they really position themselves as like the best engineered. Oh my gosh, it's so finely tuned. It's just so elegant and technique and perfect. And it does the same job as the other stuff, but man, is every little bit just so and exactly where it belongs, right? All right, so now we're getting into this listicle. This would be a lot of copy, right? If this were just have this tight together, it would be too dense. You wouldn't want to read it. It's a little bit long. But by adding in this listicle format, the numbers, suddenly it breaks it up a little bit. You can tell that that's slightly more bold than the rest of it, and it's way easier to kind of see what all is going on. We'll talk about this later, about how to emphasize things. But adding simple little callouts like this also says like, oh man, I clearly need to look at this before I look at all the other things. And you might pick one. You might jump to jet engines. You might jump to this picture and see the Rolls-Royce and the Bentley. All right. So those are design elements that will help you emphasize your copy. But for now, let's just emphasize the copy and talk about what's working. All right. One thing that I thought I'd mention is when you are in newspapers and magazines, like you would never do this sort of thing on a landing page or in an email because you have infinite space. You can use as much negative space or blank space between things as you can. When you're limited on a page size and you want to get more copy in, you put smaller words, you use smaller spaces, and you have to figure out how to make it still approachable. So this may not look the best design by modern standards, but because they had limitations we didn't. If you were in physical media, you would have the same problems, but you're not. So just take that with a grain of salt. All right, let's jump in. At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise comes from the electric clock, reports the technical editor of The Motor. The silence of the engine is uncanny. That's pretty good word, uncanny. That's a visceral word there. 3 mufflers tune out sound frequencies acoustically. I think the most powerful, I actually don't love the acoustically there, but again, I'm writing in a different age where people use smaller words. So I think that's unnecessary. Maybe people are getting tired of digital and something about the analog quality is really interesting, but we emphasized and electric clock up here instead of analog. So I don't know that I love the acoustically thing, but you know, they test these things. My gut feeling tells me something's weird about that, but the 3 mufflers that tune out sound frequencies sounds pretty good. I in a modern world with smaller words, I'd say 3 mufflers tune out annoying sounds. That's how I'd write it. But again, I've learned to write really small because people don't have tolerance for big words now. All right. Every Rolls-Royce engine is run for 7 hours at full throttle before installation. Each car is test driven for hundreds of miles over varying road surfaces. Okay, so now we're talking about quality. We have what are basically features and benefits here. Something that Claude Hopkins talks about is just telling your story. And it may be the same story that everyone does. Maybe there's a regulation that every single car needs to be tested in the same way. That they all have to be run full throttle for 7 hours, and they all have to be test driven for hundreds of miles over varying road surfaces. Probably, but to the average consumer, they don't know that. And the first person who tells that story tells a story of quality that no one else is telling. So I would not be surprised to bet that that's what David Ogilvy is doing there. All right. The Rolls-Royce is designed as an owner-driven car. What does that mean? It's 18 inches shorter than the largest domestic cars. I guess that means there's no room for kids. That's part of the allure, I guess. That one's weird. Rolls-Royce is designed as an owner-driven car. One thing that they do well there is the owner-driven car is probably a term we haven't seen before. And so they're doing what's known as a unique mechanism. You're like, okay, I created this term, and afterwards you go, whoa, what is that? How is that? What is the benefit of that? And then you keep reading. Did I walk away knowing what that meant? No. But again, in a different age, maybe people did. Maybe people who are more knowledgeable about the Rolls-Royce are really sold on that sort of thing. All right, the car has power steering, power brakes, and an automatic gear shift. Yeah. All right, so this is good use of adjectives. Power, automatic. That is clearly something that the Rolls-Royce customer cares about. Yes. Does it seem? Power steering is a big deal. You know, it's really nice. It's high tech, but they are using words that are really good. I bet you the marketing department had something to do with the term power steering, right? All right. It is very easy to drive and to park. No chauffeur required. Okay, awesome. It's approachable for me even if I can't afford a chauffeur. It's easy to drive and to park. Awesome. So now we're touching on ease. I was worried that this big, heavy car would be hard to drive. There's no metal-to-metal contact between the body of the car and the chassis frame, except for the speedometer drive. The entire body is insulated and under sealed. So we're talking about attention to detail. The finished car spends a week in the final test shop being fine-tuned. Here, it is subjected to 98 separate ordeals. For example, the engineers use a stethoscope to listen for axle whine. Okay. Now we're getting into a story that I bet you most people can't tell, as opposed to number 2. And that's awesome. Again, we're not even doing something particularly interesting there besides telling a story of quality and rigor. And that, for this audience specifically, it's like, wow, incredible. Oh man, I wish I had that. But aside from that audience, the example that Claude Hopkins talks about is beer. Beer isn't a Rolls-Royce or a Rolex. And he says, we care about purity. So we pull water out of lakes 10,000 feet under the ground so that it's super pure. And then we filter it through X, Y, and Z, and then finally arrive at this result weeks later. And that's a great story. But it is beer, and it's what everyone else is doing. But a story of rigor and quality is actually important across industries. Don't just think that luxury products need that sort of thing. The Rolls-Royce is guaranteed for 3 years. That's probably much longer than their competition. With a new network of dealers and part depots from coast to coast, service is no problem. I don't know why coast to coast is capitalized there, but whatever. The Rolls-Royce radiator has never changed, except that when Sir Henry Royce died in 1933, the monogram RR was changed from red to black. So now we're appealing to someone who kind of cares about history and tradition, right? If you've liked the Rolls-Royce brand for a while, there's something ageless about this. The coach is given 5 coats of primer paint and hand rub between each coat before 14 coats of finishing paint go on. Wow. So this is shiny. This is given love. This is given so much attention to detail. And a lot of it's really going to focus on that for a Rolls-Royce ad. By moving a switch on the steering column, you can adjust the shock absorbers to suit road conditions. The lack of fatigue in driving this car is remarkable. All right, so we talk about a feature, and then what do we do right after we do the feature? We say the benefit. The lack of fatigue in driving this car is remarkable. Almost exactly how someone would say, like, this is a huge car, but no matter what conditions I'm in, it's so easy, and I'm so comfortable. And it says that in such a way. Just the part that really stands out to me is not the lack of fatigue part, but it's remarkable. It's like a friend was talking to you, and that's a great way to write. Another switch defrosts the rear window by heating a network of 1,360 invisible wires in the glass. There are 2 separate ventilating systems so that you can ride in comfort and silence with all the windows closed. Air conditioning is optional. Awesome. Great. I'm going to keep going. The seats are upholstered with 8 sides of English leather, capitalized English leather. It sounds so pristine and so wonderful, enough to make 128 pairs of soft shoes. Why does this matter? Because it's a specific number. I don't know why that matters, but it's a lot of leather. It's visceral. You're like 128. That's a ton of car, or a lot of shoes. And the English leather, just eight hides of English leather. Oh, it sounds so luxurious. You can get such optional extras as an espresso coffee making machine. That's crazy. I guess it loops up there. A dictating machine, a bed, hot and cold water for washing, an electric razor, or a telephone. Insane. This is like a cruise line on wheels, right? This is supposed to feel like the Titanic. Just everything you could ever want, every modern luxury. It is what it is. 15, you can lubricate the entire chassis by simply pushing a pedal from the driver's seat. A gauge on the dash shows the level of oil in the crankcase. Easy. Oh my gosh, what I'm now taking care of my car just by sitting in the driver's seat and operating it. Excellent. Gasoline consumption is remarkably low, and there's no need to use premium gas, a happy economy. So suddenly, this really expensive vehicle, you're like, oh man, it is actually saving me money. Oh my goodness, I need to get this Rolls-Royce, right? There are two separate systems of power brakes, hydraulic and mechanical. The Rolls-Royce is a very safe car and also a very lively car. So here, what it does, it says that it's safe, but that actually might be a drawback, right? It might be like, oh, safe. Oh, I wanted luxury and adventure, right? And it says, but it's also a very lively car. It cruises serenely at 85 top speed in excess of 100 miles per hour. So it couples together two benefits that actually seem contradictory, is that it's safe and it's adventurous. Rolls-Royce engineers make periodic visits to inspect owners' motor cars and advise on service. Excellent. What we've done here is actually make something that might seem pushy and annoying as like a benefit. Maybe the average Rolls-Royce customer is not concerned about spending more money. They just want to make sure that this works for a long time. And that's awesome that they do that. And then we get the faces from the Rolls-Royce and the Bentley. Very similar. The Bentley is made by Rolls-Royce, except for the radiators. They are identical motor cars manufactured by the same engineers in the same works. The Bentley costs $300 less because its radiator is simpler to make. People who feel diffident about driving a Rolls-Royce can buy a Bentley. All right, so now we've got a little downsell here. This is something when you're creating an offer stack, is maybe you've liked everything so far, and you're like, you know what, maybe the Rolls-Royce is out of my budget. That's your major objection, and it goes, hey, everything that you've seen so far that just sounds like super pristine, well made, I love all this stuff, you're going to get like, oh man, wow, that's awesome. I can actually save a little bit of money with Bentley. But maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't want something slightly worse. It's like, yeah, the radiator is simpler to make, which means the radiator is better than the Rolls-Royce. Okay, great. So I might do that. And it addresses two audiences at once. One, the person who wasn't sure they were going to buy a Rolls-Royce because it was too expensive, and the person who's like, maybe I would just buy a Bentley, I don't know, they seem the same. And it says, no, actually, it's in some ways an inferior product. And you go, okay, no, I'll settle for nothing less than the Rolls-Royce. Then we reveal the price. The car illustrated in this advertisement, FOB, principal ports of entry, costs $13,550. If you would like the rewarding experience of driving a Rolls-Royce or Bentley, write or telephone to one of the dealers listed on page 54, Rolls-Royce Inc. 10 Rock. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so what do? We have a call to action. This is direct response marketing. I made you feel all sorts of ways about the Rolls-Royce, but at the end, I want you to take action. It would have been even better if they gave you a reason to do it now instead of kind of at any point. But, we got limited space, and Rolls-Royce probably isn't selling to people who need a car right now, or even the kind of company that needs to make sales. They're probably not going to decrease their prices. They're just going to stand on business of their premium quality. So anyways, that is that. It's a wonderful product. Great writing. Let's go to our next example. Yep, this is the one I wanted. Okay, thanks again to Swipe.co for pulling together these historical examples for some of the best copywriters in the world. All right, if you don't know who Dan Kennedy is, you're missing out from learning from a 40-plus year veteran copywriter many call the father of information marketing. All right, great. So we've got a popular mechanics ad for sort of like personal development offer here. We've got this cool call out here. I'm not going to go through all of these. I don't think there's several of them. I'm just going to focus on the top one. We have this really visceral image here of a really sad person in front and this really happy person with a bunch of people around them. So even in the image, we're using something to say a lot of words that we didn't have time to go over. And that's the ideal image. You don't want to spend time on ads that don't have that sort of quality to them. But what this does is it instantly lets you know the stakes of what's on the line. It says which one has personal magnetism. So no matter if you look at the headline first or the image, it's actually going to kind of self-reference itself here. So you can tell at a glance, of course. So obvious, such simple words. So, come on, you can tell, you know. And this probably speaks to someone who's like, oh no, everyone's kind of the same probably. I don't really like to say that one person's better than another, and you go, no, you know, of course, you can tell at a glance. There's no mistaking the man or the woman whose very manner radiates personal attraction, whose very presence is a magnet that draws and holds the attention of others. How much personal magnetism have you? That's weird. That's not how we speak now, but it was probably appropriate back then. Do you find it easy to mingle with strangers, making friends as you go? Do you find it easy to mix with people at a dance or at a party, feeling thoroughly poised, calm, sure of yourself? All right. Really evocative, really great 5 sense words. One thing, because I told you, this is huge for placing emphasis on things, is there is a rhetorical technique. I forget which one it is off the top of my head, but it's removing ands or adding lots of ands in, and it creates a sort of urgency in how you're writing. So you say, do you find it easy to mix with people at a party, at a dance or a party, feeling thoroughly poised, calm, sure of yourself? So you could say, feeling thoroughly poised and calm and sure of yourself. That actually calms it down weirdly. Sometimes adding lots of and, saying like, I went to the store and I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this, it actually creates tension. In this case, it doesn't seem to. I think there's not enough things. So we remove the and we say, do you feeling thoroughly poised, calm, sure of yourself? It actually takes away some of the normal pattern and makes it seem a little bit more urgent. Good move. And it also saves on a little printing. Do you find it easy to win the confidence of people in business, impressing them instantly, commanding their attention, swaying them to your way of thinking? Again, he's just the master of these 5 sense words. Swaying, that's a verb. Commanding, that's a verb. Win, that's a verb. Impressing them, that's a verb. I might have already done that. That's huge. And then we're talking about what people want. We want people to come to our way of thinking. We want to do more business with people and impress people. Awesome. Well done. You have the magnetic attraction you need, but you're not using it. Learn the secret of magnetic control, and it is inevitable that you will be popular wherever you go. Great desire there. With whomever you happen to be. You can be popular in social life, successful in business. You can be strong, healthy, powerful, confident of yourself, conscious of your power, successful. Here's how. Okay, again, good use of removing the ands here, and it creates a lot of impact. And we went over a lot of desires there. I'm sure that was extremely well researched before we did any of those. All right. The Shaftesbury system for cultivating personal magnetism. Shaftesbury. Edmund Shaftesbury, famous scientist and psychologist, has perfected a simple system based upon the one great fundamental principle of magnetic control. It is the same amazing principle that Shaftesbury has been quietly teaching to a select group of people who were able to pay hundreds of dollars for the privilege. All right, so we've just raised the value. We've positioned the price, and now we're going to probably say how they could get it for less than that once upon a time. So this is well-researched, well-funded, and expensive. This is high value. Now anyone at trifling cost can come into possession of this extraordinary secret of magnetic control that has made Shaftesbury one of the leading scientists of our age. Through a simple system, you can become a new, dominant, powerful, magnetic personality. Again, we're leaving out all the ands, just hitting it boom, 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 all these things you want. You can release at once all the subtle magnetic influence of your nature. Your imprisoned mental magnetism, your sex magnetism, your emotional magnetism, your passion magnetism, your aggressive magnetism. You can sway and control others. You can command success. You can influence people to do things you want them to do. You can overcome nervousness, worry, ill health. Okay, again, now we've got 2 rhetorical devices out. We're talking about all these benefits. People want business, they want sex, they want emotional, they want passion, they want to be aggressive and powerful. Okay, awesome. Those are all things we want to include. We're also doing you can, right? You can sway, you can command, you can influence, you can overcome. powerful verbs. We use lots of verbs. We said you can 3 or 4 times in a row. And we use these like visceral benefits that people really want. Very, very well written. All these are but the first and most conspicuous result of magnetic control. The great fundamental change in your own personality. Release the magnetic influence of your nature and feel instantly conscious of a new power surging through you, a new confidence in yourself, a new poise and self-assurance. Okay, so we have a new, if you notice that. Again, I told you that three repetition with the same start each time is huge, really powerful. If you walk away with one rhetorical device you're going to use, that's one of them. But you can already see that there's more uses to these rhetorical devices, like leaving and out or putting a lot of ands in. An interesting booklet sent free on request. We will be glad to send you, absolutely without cost or obligation, our fascinating new book called Your Magnetic Powers, which explains in detail what personal magnetism really is, why only 1 person in 1,000 uses this amazing natural power, and what it can do for you throughout life once you release it through the remarkable Shoutout system. You must have a copy. Send your name and address so that we can forward it to you at once, no obligation. Okay, awesome. So this is a lead magnet, right? We're trying to get people's name and address. This would be like enter your email for some sort of free stuff. We've been doing this for a long time, guys. But the goal is that I know the lifetime value of a customer. I know if I get your email address, on average, I'll make $300 from someone, right? $350 or $3,000, whatever it might be. Depends on your industry, depends on your product, depends how good of a marketer you are. And for that, you say, yeah, you know what? If my average customer value is $300, I'm willing to send them a $13 book plus $7 of shipping. Because my cost to acquire a customer is typically, that puts me at $18, but my let's say I have to send out 5. So suddenly I'm at 18 times 5, I'm going to round up. So that's $100, a little bit less than $100 to actually get someone to buy from you. But the lifetime value is $300. So that's a good move. Invest $100 to make $300. Great move. That's sort of the logic going on here. Okay, so that's really well written, and I didn't talk about this last at all. So we got your magnetic powers, explains what personal magnetism is, why only 1 person in 1,000. Okay, so this is like I'm joining kind of an elite group of people. That's awesome. This amazing natural power. It's like almost like the power's always been within me. A little bit of flattery in there, and we have the remarkable Shoutout system. So this is, again, the unique mechanism. It's giving a name. It's not like, oh, this 3-step process, which also works, but you gave it a name, and it makes it easier to kind of rally behind and believe in. So yeah, that's really well written. And we got 2 more for you here. All right, Swipeworthy, again, thank you. Thank you for doing such good historical work. These are articles that copywriters know about. They're like, oh, I know that these people are really good. Now we're doing Gary Halbert, who is a really, really great copywriter. But we know about these advertisements, and it's really nice of Swipe to actually keep like a historical archive here of all this stuff so you can read through it and really see what's working and what's not. All right, so now we've got Gary Halbert's weight loss ad. So let's go off. He invents the phrase burn off fat. That's great. And it's just like, some of these things, it's just the only sound you hear clicking is the electric clock. That's like in the copywriting world, those words echo. It's like decades later, we're like, oh yeah, that was perfect. That was exactly what it needed to be. Burn off body fat. Every single fitness influencer has been using that for forever. And it's all because of Gary Halbert, right? All right. So an amazing new diet idea. Something we do fun here is we basically have 2 headlines. There's a lot of emphasis on, we actually have 4. We've got like what I call an H1. This is your big one. But sometimes you actually read something above it more, or you read here first and you're like, wait, what is this? Should I believe in this? You say how to burn off body fat hour by hour. So we're going to do this. Again, we talked about this earlier. Big benefit up front, and then we're going to reduce the time and sacrifice on the bottom. And you go, should I believe in this? It says advertisement up here. I had to put that because of some reason, some legal reason, I'm sure. And this is an amazing new diet idea. Ooh, it's amazing. All right, so now I'm going to go down. Oh, wait, a medical doctor's new discovery. Oh, this is super legit. This isn't fake. It's by a medical doctor, right? This is really popular in like affiliate marketing and all sorts of stuff. Like, doctors hate them because of this one weird trick, right? All sorts of different things that are really impactful lines. But basically, the idea here by having multiple headlines is you see this. It's a big benefit in less time and sacrifice, and everything else around it. All the next things you look at are all kind of addressing your objections. So you say, it's a new diet idea and it's amazing. Okay, this isn't fake. A medical doctor, ooh, I can trust him. The amazing thing, of course, is that the speed of which this program works, oh, it's so fast. There's so little time and sacrifice. It's rather remarkable to throw off as much as 6 pounds of fluid and fat in the very first weekend. Oh, there's so little time and sacrifice. I must have it. All right, great. I'm hooked. I'm in. My objections of it not being real or it taking too much time or being too hard are completely off the table now. Now I'm in, and now I just need to be sold on all of it. So, dear friend, my name is Don Schwartfeger. Sorry about that if I pronounced your name wrong. Anyways, this is good. Again, don't write as a corporation, write as a person. It's way more impactful. I am an MD and have been practicing medicine here in San Diego for 14 years. I am reproducing my business card at the bottom of this page, and I am writing to ask the people of America a personal favor. Oh man. All right, so there's something interesting in psychology where, yeah, we can give people something and they feel some sort of obligation to us. Weirdly enough, it is more impactful to do a personal, to ask the person you want to buy from you a personal favor. Like a skeezy version of it might be like, oh, I dropped my pen. Would you mind picking that up? Dude, we are friends now. Thank you for picking up my pen. Do you want to buy something from me? I don't know why it works, but you only do favors for your friends. And so by getting people to do you favors, you're friends now. It's a really powerful technique. It's cool. One thing you'll notice compared to Dan Kennedy is this seems way less pushy right away. It seems a lot more like a doctor is writing it, which it's supposed to, but they are using some of those powerful sales techniques in there. All right. If any of you will do me, I just add in words sometimes. If any of you will do this favor for me, you will be helping me with my research and I will gladly pay you for your help. Oh, this isn't an ad. I'm helping someone and I could get paid. Here's what it's all about. I am a psychiatrist, and in addition to my other patients, I have been helping people with alcohol and drug addictions. So far, I have treated more than 2,500 various types of drug addicts, but strangely enough, over the years, my practice has taught me that overeating is even more difficult to deal with than many hardcore drug addictions. Okay, so if you have a weight problem, suddenly I'm like letting you off the hook. It's like, oh man, this isn't your personal will. This isn't, this problem. It's like, oh man, it's not your fault. It's really hard to do. And some time ago, I began to realize that any person who is overweight needs much more than just a diet. I now know that every overweight person needs an anti-fat weapon that is both safe and powerful. Okay, that sounds great because I've tried dieting and it hasn't worked very well in the past. Yeah, thank you. Can you hide that? Finally, after years of research, I feel I have developed just such a weapon. What it consists of is a new diet product and a system that actually burns off body fat hour by hour. Believe it or not, my new diet system burns away more fat and fluid than if you ran 98 miles per week. I'm sure they did that calculation somewhere. Sorry, I'm realizing that my camera is probably just slightly off. It's fine. I got it. All right. We'll just stop wiggling. So what they probably did here is they want that specific number. So I said it was just kind of impactful for headlines, but it's useful everywhere to have those big specific numbers. So believe it or not, it burns away more fat and fluid than if you ran 98 miles per week. How many calories do you burn when you run 98 miles? Right? How many calories do you burn running 98 miles? I may not be able to get that. Apparently I can. My age, let's say I'm 30, my weight is 200, resting heart rate is 68, my distance run is 98 miles. Tell me, 14,686. That's a lot of calories. I'm sure they did that and then said, you know what, in a week, I can get that for you. Or did it even say that? My new diet system burns away more fat and fluid than if you ran 98 miles per week. Okay, so it's probably equivalent. So somehow this is saving me 14,000 calories. That's awesome. Don't know how they did that calculation, but I'm sure they did it in order to make the claim or figured it out somehow. Anyways, many of the people who have tested my program have lost as much as 2 pounds of fat and fluid every day for the first week. Actually, many people have reported a 6-pound weight loss in just the first 48 hours. After the first week, many people continue to lose as much as 9 pounds every 2 weeks thereafter. Some people who were very obese have used my method to lose 50, 60, and even 100 pounds and more. That's kind of a popular technique where you say like big number, and even this big number, and even more, and just like you kind of keep piling that on. That would be a great opportunity to maybe try doing lots of ands. If you say, I've seen people lose 50 pounds and 60 pounds and even 100 pounds and even more than that. A great opportunity to try that out. When you begin to use this program, you can expect to be able to measure the difference in your waistline in just 24 to 48 hours. You will probably lose more inches each week than even if you faithfully did hundreds of sit-ups every day. It says that like that's a given. Doing sit-ups is a horrible way to try and lose weight. It might build some muscle, but it's not going to do it. But what it does do is it talks about something that sounds painful. It's like, I have to do hundreds of sit-ups every day. Of course, I'm not going to burn fat. But it sounds miserable, and this is going to be easier than that. You may very well lose as much as 3 to 5 inches off your waistline in the first month. If you are a woman, you can lose as much as a full dress size in only 7 days. That's probably a very specific goal he has identified from his customers. Like, I've got this event next week, and I want to look better in a dress. Literally, you can do that. Okay, awesome. That's a great thing to highlight. The amazing thing, of course, is the speed at which the system works. It is rather remarkable to throw off as much as 6 pounds of fat and fluid in the very first weekend. Just imagine how it must feel to drop up to 2 pounds a day and shrink your waistline up to 3 inches in the first week. So now we're really identifying this sort of like dream outcome, dream world. And you forget that at the beginning, you were doing this guy a favor and maybe getting paid for it. I don't know where that went, but now I'm just super bought into the quality of this product. All right. My first concern when I developed this program was safety. Therefore, my anti-fat formula contains absolutely no drugs. All right, so that's a major objection. What's wrong with it? Nothing. I don't know. It's got no drugs in it. It's made entirely of 100% natural ingredients. I first tested it on myself and now use it religiously every day. I have found, that my program can even help people who have been hopelessly overweight all their lives, including those who need to lose 20 to 30 or 70 pounds or more. So again, we do that number or more. The other thing that we did that was really good was I tested it on myself and now use it religiously. So it's something that I personally believe in, right? You don't have to worry about this. My diet product does not necessarily produce a specific spot reduction, but if you are considerably overweight, a significantly overall loss of excess pounds could easily mean you could lose 6 inches off your waistline, 4 inches off your stomach, 4 inches off your buttocks, 3 inches off of your thighs, or 5 inches off of your hips. Now, if this were written modern, you would not want to say that you lose 4 inches off your buttocks. You want to keep that butt, baby. But everything else is probably pretty universal, right? Anyways, those are all highlighting very clear benefits. From a design perspective, it's really good to have bullet points. It breaks up the rhythm of it again, like we talked about with, I think it was Dan Kennedy's ad, or David Ogilvy's, where you had the numbers, is you have to figure out when you have this wall of copy, how to draw people's attention to things. So we have this call out. Yeah, it was Dan Kennedy had the call out there. We have the call out and we can pay attention to that, right? We can use bullets to get people to pay attention to stuff. We can pull something out and use a totally different font and weight to get people to pay attention to it. All very impactful. Remember, you don't have to wait for weeks with my system. It starts instantly. You can actually see the results in just a few days. The way you use this formula is simple. All you do is mix it with a glass of your favorite beverage and drink it every day, the first thing in the morning. Apparently, you can mix it with orange juice or vodka or whatever it is. Easy, no problem. It doesn't even have to be water. Excuse me. Then during the rest of the day, you eat a wide selection of tasty foods, which are scientifically programmed to maintain a high level of fat burnoff. So it's tasty. It's not even going to be disgusting or lame. It's going to be delicious. That's pretty subjective. I don't know if it's true, but it is what it is. That's all there is to it. This may be the most effective fat burning method ever developed. It is not a drug. It is not a gimmick. It is a formula that I was only able to develop after years of research. And as I said before, I use myself. It works. And now I want to spread the word to other doctors so that they can use my diet system to help all of their overweight patients. To make a long story short, what I want to do is write an article and have it published in the various medical journals, as I sincerely felt this is the best way to convince other doctors of the value of my system. But I need a lot of proof in order to get my article published, and this is where you can help me. And as I said before, I will be more than happy to repay you for your help. All right, we're coming back around to it. We really sold the benefits of it. You're on board. You kind of want to try it. And you know what? I'm not even selling you on it, guys. Come on. You're just doing me a favor because I need more examples. of how I help people because I've been researching it for so long. I just need to show that it works on thousands of people. So therefore, here is what I would like you to do. If you or any member of your family is overweight, I would like you to go ahead and order a supply of my crash loss system and test it yourself. It is sold by Milburn Products Incorporated. As soon as you receive this fantastic diet system, start the program and see if it works for you. Frankly, this or any other diet program will not work for everyone because a small percentage of people have unusual problems. By the way, naturally, you should check with a doctor before you use this or any other diet plan. However, Milburn Products is so positive about this diet system that they are making the following guarantee. Ooh, we got a guarantee in there. If you have not lost up to 6 pounds in the first 48 hours and up to 12 pounds in the first week, or for any reason you are not 100% satisfied, then send back the empty product container and the company will return your entire payment to you quietly and without question. Oh man, what a guarantee. It must work, right? I'm going to lose 6 pounds in 48 hours. I'm going to be on the toilet, baby. But it's, if you can deliver on that, it is what it is. The price is just $8.45 for a full 10-day supply with complete instructions. A 15-day supply is $11.70. A 20-day supply is $13.95. And finally, a 30-day supply is only $18.95. That is a 25% discount. Okay, so something we're doing here that's kind of fun, talking about not just copywriting, but whole funnel economics, is your cost to acquire the customer stays the same. There's 3 different ways to make more money in business. You can sell to more people, you can sell it for more money, or you can sell more volume. And what they're doing here is saying, like, I'm selling to the same number of people. This ad is only going to be so good. What I'm going to do here is just see if I could sell more to the same people, right? So instead of $8.45 for a full 10-day supply, you can clearly, obviously, save money by getting a 30-day supply. It's only about twice as expensive for 3 times as much product. So it's a 25% discount. Ooh, I must have it. Great. So it's a great way to do it and actually make more money. It allows you to go what's called ROAS. It's return on ad spend. So if you have a fixed acquisition cost, you can increase the amount you make by the ad just by giving people more options. And that was as true in physical media as it is in digital media today. All right. It is easy to order. First of all, don't send any money. All you have to do is pick up your phone and dial this. Okay, so weirdly enough, they didn't say start the call. I think that's a really good move. People hate calling. Stop doing this to people. It's like, you don't have to send any money. Please don't send us your money. Just come talk to a salesperson who will better convince you to spend more money. But they didn't say it that way. They positioned it as, don't send us money. We don't want your money. Just call someone. That's it. That's all we're asking is this little thing of asking you to call. Please call, blah, blah, blah. They are a toll-free number and it won't cost you a penny. When the girl answers, give her your name and address and tell her how much you want to order. Then tell her the number of either your MasterCharge or Visa credit card and the expiration date. By the way, for our records, please tell her the code number of your order is FW10. All right, I told you this. One of the most important parts about direct response marketing is those codes, is those coupons. It's like, hey, I need you to tell me this, because it says FW10. Well, there's probably a version that says FW9 or DW10 or whatever it might be, and they're going to switch the headline. They're going to switch something about it. And so you're going to come in and tell them, oh, my order was FW10. Okay, great. And by the end of this campaign, you're going to know what works. And when you keep running this for years on end, you're only going to run the one that worked best, right? Maybe you tested a headline in one and a picture in another, and both of those said picture A and headline A work better. So now you're going to make a new ad that has both of those in it and test that. All right, so that's how we improve as direct response marketers, by getting that feedback. All right. I'm going to come back to that stuff up there. I think I didn't do that for Dan Kennedy's. I'm sorry. What was this pop out? What is sex magnetism? A powerful magnetic influence that draws one man to one woman. Forever. Irresistible. What is strange, never failing spark that awakens love? What is it? What is it in a man and woman that seems to draw and fascinate? The hypnotic power that no one can resist. You have it. Everyone has it, but do you use it? Okay, excellent. Nice little call out. Nice little almost like movie trailer version of the full video. All right. Sorry. So I'll come back to these call outs in just a second. I want to keep reading through the rest of the body copy. All right. That's all there is to it. Your order will be sent to you quite promptly. After that, you're the judge. If you're not 100% satisfied for any reason at all, simply send it back the product with the empty product container to Milburn Products, and they will send you a complete refund with no questions asked. However, I'm pretty sure you're going to be more than satisfied. Actually, I think you're going to be amazed. In fact, I think you're going to lose your excess weight faster and easier than you ever thought possible. Huge. I don't even think I have to say that. It's I, lots of personal references there. I'm a doctor. You should trust me. I say I a lot. And then you're going to do it faster and easier. Oh man, decreasing time and sacrifice. Amazing. Anyways, I am right. Oh, if I'm right. Anyways, I'm right. Anyways, if I am right, I want you to write me a letter. Don't send the letter to Milburn Products. Send it to me at the address on my business card. In the letter, tell me how much weight you have lost and how you feel about my product and how much of it you originally ordered. In return for this favor, as soon as I get your letter, I will immediately send you another supply of my new diet product, and I will send it to you absolutely free. The amount that I will send you will be the same amount that, oh, how interesting, the same amount that you order now from Milburn Products. This will be my way of thanking you for helping me with my research. Also, in the long run, I honestly feel that with your help and the help of other nice people like yourself, that I can do a lot to help people who've been struggling for years with this weight problem. So many good things about this. All right. So, am I still recording and everything? Okay, I am. So we're gonna say, don't send it to me. All right. So we want testimonials, right? So that's a big deal. We often offer feedbacks for testimonials. Freebies, not feedback. That's good. And then he says, I'm gonna give you the same amount that you order now. So now, thank you for your testimonial. If you want this free stuff, you should order more now because it's already a 25% discount, but it's basically a 50% discount if you send me a refund. So that's cool. That's a nice little tie in there. In the amount that I will send you, this is my way of thanking you and other nice people like yourself. So now I've said, you're actually a nice person if you help me. Oh man, I have to. Only nice people would buy this product. Okay, so now I'm saying something good about myself by taking action. Another really good move. Finally, we get to the PS, and PSs are very powerful in copywriting. By the way, if you have any questions after you start using my new diet product, you can call me direct at the number on my business card, which is reproduced below. Thank you. All right, so now we've built some trust and eliminated some final objections in that PS area. Very well done. Let's go up and read these pop-outs. It's about Dr. Schwartzberger. He's been in business for 14 years. He's helped more than 2,500 heroin addicts, and he makes overeating is more difficult to deal with. So it's a call out, basically what we saw earlier. But again, people are skimming through this. It helps people see like, oh, what is this? How is it working? All right. Vital note, please follow the instructions below and do not send any money to order this amazing diet system. So it's an amazing diet system and you don't send any money. It sounds like it's free, but it's not. But it's a nice little word trick there. But anyways, that is yet another really well written advertisement. And again, you can see how those principles would remain true. The final one, my favorite to include on this list, is Tai Lopez's Here in My Garage. There was a time in the world where, I think it was about 2015, where you could not go online without being bombarded by this ad. And he comes in and he starts it.
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini here. It's fun to drive up here in the Hollywood Hills. But you know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge. In fact, I'm a lot more proud of these 7 new bookshelves that I had to get installed to hold 2,000 new books that I bought.
All right. For copyright reasons, I'm going to do this throughout the course. There's going to be videos that I want to reference. I don't know, legally, I mean, it's for education purposes. I should be fine, but that's not the way that YouTube operates sometimes. Sometimes they say that you violate a rule, even though you never violated a rule, make you take down the video, make no ad copy from it. Maybe they shut it down, even though it's like, can I just remove that 4-minute part? I don't know. So what I'm going to do throughout this course is when I really need to watch something, and I will watch this later in the course, not later today. We'll talk about what's working really well about it. And I'll just watch the videos in its own video. In a video like this, I'll say, hey, I'm going to link to this below. You can watch Here in My Garage, see what's good about it. I've already gone through 3 things. I think you can kind of go through and identify stuff on your own. But in other videos, and I will do this later on the course, I'll do a separate video and talk about what I like about it. That way, if they take down the video, they take down the video, and you'll still have the links in the main video, not the like video review video. If that makes sense. I'm going to shield myself and only talk about videos in one video. So if it gets taken down, the rest of the class doesn't get harmed. So, okay. So what does he do really well there? Just like visually, let's go through it. Obviously, he's in front of a nice car in his garage. Here in my garage. Why do I care? I don't know. has a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger on the wall. So we're appealing to people who kind of like self-help. They want to be bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter. Okay, all right, richer, all these things. Here in my garage, I'm a lot more proud of all these books. All right, look at that drop off, man. Okay. Oh, books. Oh, I don't like books. I don't want it. But it's a hell of a hook. And this ran so long, so aggressively that there's probably like 4 or 5 months where this is all you saw on YouTube. Basically, the ad blocker was invented because of Ty Lopez. And what that means is this is an insanely profitable campaign. It was in a time where, yes, ad spend costs a little bit less, but man, could you spend a little to make a lot. And they ran this forever. Great campaign. Once you click through, you get to a page which has a webinar on the other side of it where it's like, hey, I discovered this stuff. It works really well. He's got like a nice paper, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a giant notepad basically, and he's writing ideas on it. There's this pyramid. It's really well done. Again, now is not the time to identify the whole campaign. We'll talk about that actually towards the end of the campaign in the VSL and webinar episodes and talking about what they do well. Again, you need to see a lot of good copy. You need to watch a lot of good videos, and I can't do it all in a single episode, but this is a great place to start. You probably even remember this one. This one's a lot more modern as compared to the other ones I just shared, so I thought it'd be a fun one to go over. All right, so here is the hard truth. You're never going to write like those people unless you master one thing, which we're going to talk about a little bit more next week. But even this 2 hours, it's not going to be enough, guys. I gave you everything I could in 2 hours, but you've read 3 good pieces of copy. You've watched 20 seconds of a 4-minute ad going to a 1-hour webinar that you probably haven't watched any of that. And you've seen some principles and practice it exactly 0 times, right? It's not, just don't think it's enough. If you want to make $10,000 a month, if you want to 2 to 3x your business, you have to stay for the whole course. I'm hoping another 5 to 10% of you do it. I really do. It'll make a huge difference in your life and in your copywriting career. Otherwise, you're never going to write like them. And the most important bit we'll talk about next week. If you only do one thing, show up for next week. More on that then. All right, your copywriting homework. Imagine that you've been broken up with. We're going to have less copywriting homework this week than normally. So imagine that you've been broken up with, they left you for another person, they clearly think that the other person is better than you for some reason, and you probably have a real example you can draw inspiration from. This is actually because I had this happen to me. I wrote a letter that I sometimes think back to as a text, but I was very upset. I told them about how they were wrong and all these sorts of things, and I just look back at it and I was like, what a poorly written letter. And so I'm going to do my best to recreate it, and we'll talk about it next week and how it could be better. But what I want you to do is write your own. So write them a letter. It really doesn't matter how long it is, right? Make it as long or short as you would normally make it. And you can think about some of the principles we learned today or not. Just free form, shoot from the hip. Write a letter to someone, and we'll talk about why it's good and why it's not good next time. And we'll use your letter as a baseline, because at the end of this, you'll be able to look through and say like, oh man, that was actually awful. So it's really great before we really dive into everything for you to write something and see how you've improved over time. So don't try and make this a masterpiece or anything. Just write it and we'll review it in tomorrow's lesson / next week's, however it shakes out. If you're going to get anything from this course, a lot of the things I'm going to be referencing certain books. If you only get one, this is the single best book on landing pages. It's written by Dan Kennedy. It's the ultimate sales letter. You should buy it. It's fantastic. It's just the one. I do have an affiliate link below if you buy it on Amazon. It's just a way that you can help support the channel. Just another way. Hey, thank you. But there's going to be probably a dozen or so book recommendations throughout this. I personally read like 50 plus books in copywriting specifically. And they'll kind of come with like, maybe this book, definitely this book. And I think there's only like 2 or 3 must reads. If you're only going to get one though, get this book. It's specifically for landing pages, but it talks about all the principles you'll need to know. You can always go back through it and flip through and find like the perfect page on stuff. It's got the 12 profiling questions. So get it and thank me later. I told you most of you aren't going to finish this class. I'm not going to go too hard into it, but it's just not enough. I'm sorry. You have to, it's not a 2-hour thing. You wouldn't make as much money as you would. If it were something you could learn in 2 hours, everyone would do it and everyone would be a master copywriter. But you're going to have to stick around for the rest of it. All right, so next time, as we come to the end of our class today, next time we'll be learning about how to write in a way that actually makes people feel things and makes them take action and buy from you. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. I hope we're launching in. And seriously, if you haven't already, what are you doing? Put a time in your date and a time and date in your calendar so that you actually complete this thing. Tell someone that you're doing this, or go into the comment section below and find some accountability partners. Because if you really want to become a good writer and make lots of money and rapidly grow businesses, you need to finish this whole course. And I'm happy to give it to you for free. So the least you can do, come on, please, is finish the course and do yourself a favor and do me a favor at the same time. All right, thanks y'all, and we'll talk in the next one.